Hey, and welcome to the first episode of 2023 Coffee and Community. I'm Chris Montoya with the Heroes Foundation. I'm honored to be with T. Helling and Scott Chase. But first, want to go ahead and offer our condolences to the backbone of the team, Kevin Belcher. He had a family member pass recently, which is why he can't be with us today. Kevin, I want to say your family and my prayers, and we hope to have you back at the next episode. With that being said, I would like to go ahead and get started with introductions. I'm very excited to have Mr. Chase here present, as well as T. Helling. So, T.
Good morning, everyone. Good to see everybody in 2023. We made it into a new year. I am T. Helling, Veteran Employer Liaison for Texas Veteran Commission, housed out of the Red Bird Workforce in Southwest Dallas.
Good morning. My name is Scott Chase. I'm a lawyer here in Dallas. Just passed 50 years of practicing law. First 2 years in the military, by the way, so I was a military lawyer. I'm on the Veterans Affairs Commission of the City of Dallas, and I'm honored to be here as a guest. I'm not quite sure what I'm supposed to talk about, but I have lots of things to talk about because I'm a proud veteran. My family was all veterans going back several generations, and I'm honored to be a veteran. I've always been proud to be a veteran, and I'm honored to be here today. Thank you.
Wonderful.
And that's kind of the beauty of this podcast, which is led by Kevin Belcher, is that we go ahead. It's more of a kind of informal, casual conversation where we discuss and able to talk about from a federal, state, and local updates or contributions, but also success stories. So, what I'd like to do is just kind of learn a little bit more about you, sir. You had mentioned you're a lawyer in the military,
right? Is it one little interesting story? I was in ROTC at University of Houston. I got my commission in 1970, finished law school in 1971, and I got a commission in military intelligence officer. Military intelligence officers had to go to infantry school first before they went to military intelligence school. So I went to IOBC in Fort Benning, Georgia in 1971, learned how to take that hill and set up a defensive perimeter. Went to Fort Huachuca for intelligence training, and was trained as what they call a tactical intelligence officer, which means I would have gone out to the field and helped infantry take that hill and set up defensive perimeters. I got to Fort Lee, Virginia, which was where they needed an intelligence officer, so they said. I got there and they said, "You're a lawyer." I said, "No, I just graduated from law school. I haven't passed the bar yet." They said, "You're a lawyer." Yes, sir. So for 2 years at Fort Lee, Virginia, I defended DWIs, I wrote wills, I was the voting officer. We started an environmental club at Fort Lee, and we did a lot of recycling. But my last job at Fort Lee was as a procurement officer. I read regulations for procurement. And anybody who was in the Army after 1973, you didn't have to do KP. The reason you didn't have to do KP, kitchen police, was because I was the lawyer that civilianized the KP system in the United States Army in 1973. So
Thank you for that.
but I got a job in Dallas because of that. So I grew up in Houston and thought I'd go back to Houston to practice law, but I got a job in Dallas, and I thought a job in Dallas was better than no job in Houston. So I came to Dallas in 1973 and been here ever since. Officially retired as a lawyer last year, but I'm continuing to practice with some younger lawyers at my old law firm, training them how to do what I do. While I'm on the subject of being a veteran, I guess I would like to also point out both my grandfathers served in World War I. In fact, my paternal grandfather was all set at Camp Gordon to go to France on Armistice Day. And I have a very touching letter from my grandfather to his mother talking about how everybody's happy that no one has to go to France anymore. So, which is true. A lot of people died in France. Yeah. Then my father was a World War II veteran. He flew 35 missions in a B-24 over Germany and France. Then both my fathers-in-law were career military officers or Air Force. And then I remember as a child growing up and seeing all my aunts and uncles pictures on the wall of their service during World War II. In fact, my mom was a dental hygienist at Plankton Air Force Base in 1943, and that's where she met my dad. So she was a civilian veteran also. So that's kind of my story about veterans.
Wow, you have a whole family of veterans. You didn't say Marine Corps, but it's okay. It's all right.
Oh, I have a story about the Marine Corps.
I don't know if we can say that on film. On
No,
camera.
no, it's a good story.
It's a good story?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, tell us.
It's a
your
funny story.
Okay, go ahead. What about the Marine Corps?
So I was at Fort Lee, Virginia, and we all decided that one day, let's go over to Quantico, Virginia, to shop at the PX. You know, surely they got better stuff at the PX. So I'm walking around the PX, and this guy comes up to me and says, "You're not in the Marine Corps, are you?" I said, "How do you know?" He said, "Your hair." So I didn't have long hair, but for the Marine Corps, I had
It was long,
hair.
yeah. Yes, yeah, they will spot you really fast.
Yeah.
We will definitely point them out like, gee, you have a lot of glorious hair.
Exactly. So another kind of quick things about my family. I have my grandfather's World War I letters that he wrote back to his mom from 1917, 1918, including that touching letter about the Armistice Day. And then I have my dad's World War II diary of his 35 missions.
Wow.
And I have a map. It's a silk map. It's an interesting story. If you were in the Air Corps, you flew and you weren't supposed to carry anything with you, but they gave them silk maps. And if you had a crash landing and got picked up by the Germans or the Japanese, I guess, they could pat you down and they would feel like it was a handkerchief, but it was a map of Europe in my dad's case. And I have his map where he circled his bombing runs.
Wow, that's incredible history.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Anybody that doesn't know what Armistice Day is, Google it.
Yeah, Armistice Day.
Learn your history.
Yeah, very, now called,
I don't know what the current thing is called. You put me on the spot.
I know, I did too.
That's what I should Google.
But the reason that we have the holiday is that on the 11th minute of the 11th day of the 11th hour in November 1918 was when the armistice was signed between Germany and the Allied powers. So.
Okay. You should almost be a history teacher too to add that to your long list of accomplishments.
I am an amateur historian.
Okay. All right.
Well, one of the I guess the first ones that I ever had. So part of my experience is building military programs within corporate environments. And so one of my first full projects was Interstate Batteries. Interstate Batteries was created by Norm Miller, who was a veteran. His son Scott was taken over, and they wanted a more dedicated approach to making a commitment to creating opportunities for our heroes. So I was part of the team, led the team to go ahead and build it out. One of the first hires we had was out of Fort Hood, out of the Jacquards. Okay. So he came in as general counsel. Can you talk a little about your transition into kind of professional civilian life from the military? Because he had kind of shared a little bit, and it's kind of mind-blowing.
Well, one reason I'm so proud about being a veteran is I think you learn how to deal with all sorts of people. In my training anyway, I was trained to go into combat essentially, so you learn how to deal with training people and leading people. When I got actually my first legal job in the military at Fort Lee, I had to deal with all sorts of people who were coming in and seeking legal advice, and I had never had a counseling class. So you learn on the go, so to speak, if you're in the military. And I think the military gives you the training and the kind of the attitude about I can do anything, mm-hmm. and I can organize anything. Mm-hmm. And that's the way I felt about every job I've had. I've had 3 in-house jobs since I left the military, and then a long solo practice. But I was never scared of anything in terms of somebody coming to me and saying, "Can you do this?" If I couldn't do it, I would tell them. But if I thought I could do it, I would do it. And I think the military gives you that attitude.
Exactly. Exactly. You adapt and overcome. In all branches.
Well, that's true. I'm just not talking about the Army. Because every service branch has leadership training, and they affirmatively have these classes and purposely set you out on things that are hard to do, mm-hmm. and you want to find out who is the leader, who can do what they need to get, who can do what needs to get done. And like I said, I've always been proud of that. My first, one of the jobs I had I was a general counsel at Dr. Pepper, here in Dallas. And most of the senior staff of my particular department, which was essentially the finance department and the legal department and data processing, we had a senior VP in charge. Most of his people working for him were veterans, because he recognized that we had a special knack for leading and training.
Exactly. Tell employers that all the time.
And so did you come out of the military with opportunities, corporate opportunities, or was it, I guess, how was it, because I would think it'd be a little bit more difficult from
I think you're right. Typically, if I'd been a JAG officer, you would have had to serve 4 years. I served 2. And I was kind of lucky in the sense that I was in a job at the end that kind of fed into what this company needed here in Dallas. They needed a regulatory lawyer. And so I had done this regulatory work for civilianizing KP, which had to deal with procurement. You had to go, I actually was in the Pentagon with a bunch of generals when we decided. I was the first lieutenant. Here I am telling the generals how to civilianize KP. But that's one of the things I learned, though, was that if you know what you're talking about, you can talk to anybody, including generals, if you're a first lieutenant. So anyway, I got a job here in Dallas, and the first job in Dallas, though, was supposed to be regulatory, but they gave me some work to do in an antitrust case. I had never taken antitrust in law school. Then they said, okay, we don't make you a trademark lawyer. And they said, I had never taken trademark law. So you just learn on the go, and you have to, you adapt and overcome, as she says.
See, I told you, adapt and overcome. That's what we do. You do it so much, you forget that's what it is.
But once you have a start of your law career, it's relatively easy to move around if you stay flexible and stay positive.
Yeah, definitely.
And so how did you end up with the City of Dallas?
But I don't work for the City of Dallas.
Oh, I mean the Veterans Advisory Commission, because from what I understand, it's in its infancy. It's still relatively new for my perspective. What I've been told.
Well, I was appointed by Janie Schultz, the councilwoman for one of the districts in North Dallas. She had tried to find someone to be her appointment to the commission, and she couldn't find somebody, and she was mentioning it to Chad West, who's my council member in Oak Cliff, and Chad is a veteran, and so he and I have kind of a special bond. And so he called me one day and said, would you like to be on the Veterans Affairs Commission? And I said, sure. He said, well, is Janie Schultz going to appoint you? I said, that's fine. And so we met, and I passed a background check. Really, another little funny story. You have to have a background check anytime you're on a commission in the City of Dallas, and so they found a parking ticket I had not paid from 1978 in my background check.
That's scary. They retain those. Okay, good to know.
I have no idea how they found out it was my car. It wasn't my car for like 20 years at least.
Wow.
But they still, I think somehow they traced and they had to pay $42 to get on the commission.
Oh my gosh.
Just to wish you.
$42. Okay. Veterans, just a small caveat real quick. Don't forget Desiree Bailey, Veterans Treatment Court, if you have citations. Preferably not from that long ago.
Right. Talk about the Veterans Court, by the way. I've heard about it, and I know that it started maybe 10 years ago or so.
There is more than one Veterans Treatment Court. So one of our panel members is Desiree Bailey, and she does Veterans Treatment Court. She handles citations. They help you with your citations and whatnot. There's also a Veteran Treatment Court for felonies such as DUI and things of that nature. You have to apply for it. Again, you can reach out to me, or you can reach out to us on the website or on Facebook. We will give you all the point of contacts that you need, because again, there are different veteran treatment courts that handle different things.
Why don't you give your website?
Okay, so there's different websites. My website is t.huling@tvc.texas.gov. So I help employers hire veterans. However, we have Heroes Foundation. Chris?
The Daniel Salvador Montoya Heroes Foundation, the acronym.org. We're able to email me, contact me, and I'm able to help and at least connect you to the resources. Because what I love about the treatment court is not only that it helps veterans, and not only that it helps kind of get them expunge a lot of things that otherwise they wouldn't be able to do.
Right.
But it's also hiring. It's also opportunity for employers. I know a lot of employers now are second chance. A lot of employers are starting to expand their talent pool based on the impact of COVID, but also the competitive of the workforce, the labor workforce. They're looking for new sources of talent. Where can I find the next? And I know Desiree Bailey is fantastic at setting up hiring events, career fairs. She can match up. I know her and her team can match up veterans to your positions. So it's a great organization, great organization to partner with, especially if you're looking for new talent.
Yes. Now, in case you didn't get that, I'm going to make him repeat it because when he says it, he does that thing.
He was very fast.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
Daniel Mantora, slower, Chris, for all of those that, a little bit slower.
dsmhf.org.
There you go.
That's my foundation's.
I know y'all appreciate
And you can
that.
also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. So, and many have my email because I know I pester quite a few, especially the 10. So if you have any questions, feel free. I can connect you, especially with Desiree and her team.
Yes. That's for Veteran Treatment Court, that's for TBC, that's for City of Dallas, Kevin Belcher, who's normally here, Ramon Reese for the program out of the VA hospital, looking in 2023 to do great things for Heroes Rise Foundation, a lot of things coming in the works. Tell you at the end, but just want to remind you up front.
While we're talking about helping veterans, I want to make sure we talk about some things I found when I was doing some research. New programs for veterans benefits. One is what they call the PACT Act, which is the Promise to Address Comprehensive Toxics Act.
Yes.
And the VA has been directed to add 20 conditions, medical conditions, that are now qualified for hospitalization and treatment because of veterans being exposed to burn pits, or Agent Orange, or other toxic substances. And the original law had a very limited number of medical conditions. New law now adds 20 more, and you can go online and figure out which condition you might have and see if that's eligible for treatment under the new VA PACT Act.
Right. Before you move on to your second one, if you're looking to the PACT Act, you can go on the TVC website. We have a claims department. There are claims advisors in the hospital. You can now do virtual or in person, or just Google your veteran service officer in your county to make an appointment so you can get started on your claim. Thank you.
Very good.
And then lastly, to piggyback off that, the Heroes Foundation, we have a contract and a memorandum of agreement with the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs from D.C. that it applies to local. If you can't get in touch with T, if you can't get in touch with the local VA representative, feel free to email me. Feel free to contact me. I can go up to my contacts and we can find out the representative. We can also determine eligibility. We can get you at least in the conversation with the right person to determine eligibility. And if you're an employer that's a veteran-friendly program, feel free to reach out to me as well, because there's a lot of employees, veteran employees, military spouses, and family members that aren't aware of all their benefits that may still be able to carry over even through full-time employment.
Sure. Yes, sir.
So the next one I want to talk about for a minute is a new suicide care treatment for veterans, and that the VA now can reimburse and pay for emergent suicide care, and including emergency transportation for suicide care. You can also get residential care out of this new benefit for suicide care, you don't have to be enrolled in the VA healthcare system to get this benefit, and you can also get this benefit so long as you didn't have a discharge that was other than dishonorable. And I want to talk about that just for a minute. In doing some research for this podcast, I learned that basic benefits to VA are for general and honorable discharges. You're not eligible if you have a dishonorable discharge, and that there are a lot of benefits that you can get if you have a discharge other than dishonorable, which means bad conduct, undesirable, those kinds of things. So it pays to talk to a counselor to find out if you want a benefit and you don't have a general or honorable discharge, you can still get VA benefits under certain circumstances depending on the benefit.
That's helpful. And if you have one of those discharges that precludes you from getting benefits, you can look at upgrading your discharge.
That's right.
That is a process, and like all things, it takes time, but it's worth the time.
And how would you do that?
You have to go online, and there's certain steps they have to follow in order to process that.
Gotcha.
The Dallas Bar Association used to have, and I think it still does, had a veterans law clinic at the VA hospital on Friday afternoons once
Yes.
a month.
Free.
Free,
It's
yeah.
free.
And I think I've done that a few times, and I think most of the questions people get there, lawyers get there, are about upgrading discharges.
Could you talk just a little bit about that? I never knew that. So it's every Friday.
Not every Friday,
Or-
once a
Well,
month.
that's what-
Right. Once a month, they, well, it's more than you, I didn't. I just forward the information.
Because I
Ask
think
a real
that'd be
lawyer.
helpful.
I'll send the link to you.
Yeah.
Yep.
This isn't a funny story, but I'll tell you a story about discharges. One of the things I was doing at Fort Lee was handling administrative discharges. And this was toward the end of the Vietnam War, and Fort Lee, Virginia was not, they weren't sending people to Vietnam, they were keeping them at Fort Lee, and wasn't much there to do for some guys. And so they were raking leaves and doing stuff like that. They'd come to my office and say, Lieutenant Chase, I gotta get out of here, I gotta go home, I wanna go home. And I'd say, you can't leave, you got 2 years to go. they would say, I'm going AWOL. You know, I would tell them, no, you get a general discharge if you go AWOL. Oh, and I don't care, I want to get out of here, I want a general discharge. Some people actually wanted a bad conduct discharge because they wanted out so badly. And I would tell them, you don't want to do this. And I later heard there were some people did upgrade their discharges, but if you have ever meet somebody in the military and wants to get out, counsel them, don't do anything to get out. Keep your discharge honorable.
Yes.
That's the important thing.
It is. It is. There's always another way. If you know somebody active duty and they're really, really ready to go home, talk to them, give them some advice, send them to someone. Do not take the route of that bad discharge. It follows you. That
Absolutely.
bad paper can affect so many things in your life, and there's just always another opportunity. In my first year, I would have walked home from North Carolina to LA. I would have walked back home to escape. But I made it through, and 20 years later, I appreciate it. I do. That it was really far away. Yeah.
One other quick benefit I want to talk about. I read about Baylor Scott and White healthcare system now has something called the Warriors Research Institute, and it's offering free behavioral health treatment to veterans, firefighters, EMTs, or a family member of a veteran dealing with such issues as depression, anger, anxiety, substance abuse, or post-traumatic stress syndrome. And they do it via telehealth. And I have a link in a paper that I've sent to everybody here, and if anybody's interested, call me or contact Chris about this Baylor Scott and White. But telehealth is a really expanding way of getting medical treatment nowadays, and in behavioral health particularly, if you trust the person you're talking to through telehealth, can be just as effective as meeting somebody in person. So if you think you need some behavioral health counseling, take a look at the Warriors Research Institute at Baylor Scott and White Health.
That is awesome. I kind of like telehealth. I haven't done it, but I like the flexibility of it because you can do it in your car, you can do it at home. You know, if somebody that works nights, they can do it on their break. So telehealth is great for those that can't make it to an appointment or do in person. I like the availability of that, especially for somebody that's going through some difficult times, for sure.
And so how is a lot of this from the Dallas Veterans Advisor, what are some of the from your participation and your goals for current state and future state, from maybe just somebody that needs resources, from a company that there's a lot of companies that are in their infancy and starting a military program, veteran program, or looking to enhance theirs?
Well, I want to talk, before I answer that question, I want to talk a little bit about homeless veterans.
Yes, sir.
Because I know there are homeless veterans, and I know there are some homeless veterans groups, groups that help homeless veterans. It's a really tough situation because a lot of the homeless do have mental health problems that go untreated. Perhaps this Baylor program can help some of that. But I have a question for you. Does your foundation help homeless veterans, or are you geared more towards the employment situation?
We are working right now towards reentry programs for homeless, as homeless reentry programs. We have a lot of partners, a lot of companies that have entry-level positions that we're going to start building that kind of curriculum. We also have a new hire welcome package, which we'll be introducing probably March or April in partnership with the VA, in which we're going to start integrating ourselves into the new hire orientation for these kinds of groups, making sure they understand the benefits, they understand the resources, providing them with a mentor. But not only that, there's a lot of companies that have military and veteran discounts, and so when they come into a company, they come into the community, they're part of the community. They understand there's, they have support from all around. So we're getting into that this year. For most of my work, the last, I would say, 5 years in corporate programs, corporate consulting, has been more building the foundational aspect to the military program. How do we start from the recruitment side to the retention side? How we start building the pipelines from sourcing channels. T has been huge in a lot of my projects, like Virgin Hotels. She was instrumental in making sure that I think we hired 30. It was a few years pre-pandemic, but I think it was around 30 job offers that we extended, which was huge for us. But she's someone I go to first off to, if Kraft Foods, Domino's Pizza. I go to T. What do you know? How can we? What channels can we get? Spotlights. TVC does a fantastic job of corporate spotlight. So most of my work it has been more foundational, just because a lot of the companies that reach out to me are looking for an additional talent pool, and they want to make a commitment to veterans. Now that we're getting a little bit more mature in kind of our program builds, that we're starting to create these reentry programs to help do. And plus, I also have a relocation grant that my foundation will be releasing this year as well.
And your partnership with Tiny Homes.
And partnership with Tiny Homes, Valerie Ballard with Tiny Homes. Kraft Foods, there was veterans that were gainfully employed that were still homeless, living out of their cars. It opened my eyes to the fact that homelessness doesn't just mean, there's kind of biases even in homelessness and what you'd expect, and you wouldn't expect someone a veteran, fully employed, 40 hours a week to be homeless. So Valerie Ballard stepping up to provide homes that we can start now if they get a position, that they have a place to stay at least for 30 to 60 days, 90 days.
So where are the tiny homes? City Square or someplace else?
They just had an event on Saturday, right?
University Hills, right?
University Hills in Dallas, and they're literally tiny homes that they're going to have for transitioning homeless. Valerie Ballard is the point of contact. They have a sign-up list, and everybody's into tiny homes right now. They want to put them in their backyard and put their adult kids in them. That's kicking them out in their own home, but it's still in the backyard. But these tiny homes are for transitioning homeless, and they're really nice. They're really nice. They're not just shacks, and they have a you know how many acres it is?
I heard so the event we went on Saturday, it was 11 from my understanding.
Okay, so they're starting with 11 acres.
Is that out near UNT, Dallas?
Yes, sir.
Across the street.
Yes, sir. Right across the street.
Right across the street. And they're working with the city of Dallas. You and I Spread the Light, Heroes Foundation. So they are linked with a bunch of different organizations so we can get the word out when it's time to start moving those veterans, those homeless veterans, into
that sounds
homes.
really good, because Dallas has a shortage of affordable housing for sure.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
And even 11 tiny homes would be a great step in the right direction.
Yes,
Well, absolutely.
to start.
And one of the greatest, a great kind of example is that through Kevin Belcher, we were able to provide Thanksgiving meals to homeless veterans. And there was one example where a veteran was there and he was loading up his truck because he had found a place to stay. And there's no greater feeling than when you see someone that has overcome obstacle, excited about their new journey, about their new career, and finding some just need a place to stay just to get back on their feet, which is where Valerie Ballard comes in,
Right.
and then a couple paychecks in, and they can find their own way.
Exactly. Desiree Bailey during Christmas was able to get bags donated, different bags. One bag was food, all the food you never think about that's good for homeless people. It was Spam, it was those little Vienna sausages, it was all the things in a bag. Then there was another bag with a scarf, mitten, stocking cap, and she was able to give some to the city of Dallas. We gave some to the homeless in Ellis County. So there's a bunch of different organizations partnered with this organization that we try to help homeless in all those different aspects that we can right now. We plan to do more in 2023 to expand that, because like you mentioned, city of Dallas is hard for homeless to find those things that they need. Homes to start.
You asked a question about what is my goal for the Veterans Affairs Commission in Dallas, and that would be to have a not one-stop shop, but have something that veterans know that there are resources for homelessness, there's resources for health, there's resources for jobs. But I think right now there's a lot of different groups doing what they're doing.
Yes.
And one of the things that we want to do with the commission is maybe have at least one fact sheet that says these are the 11 places you can go all in one place, or one place you can look at, as opposed to trying to navigate the various other resources. Although I assume your website probably has some of this too.
It does. Our website has it. We have links to other websites. Because I work in employment, individuals can reach out to me because I work with a lot of different agencies that cover. So you're right, when somebody calls, I give them a list, or my veteran career advisor gives them a list of where to direct them. For you, in order for you all to provide that list, should people reach out to you so you can give them a list? Are you creating that list right now?
I think we're creating that list.
Okay, all right. I'd love to work with you on that.
And we talked about it at the last meeting. In fact, when I first met Chris, we talked about it later, that we needed to have this list, I guess, because a lot of veterans are solitary. They don't necessarily find everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
If we have a list, commission members and the city staff, it can have a veteran ask a question and give them this list, then it helps you guys too, I think. So
absolutely. So beside me plugging into you, should organizations contact you or contact the commission to get on that list?
Contact the commission.
Contact the commission. Don't contact him directly. Okay. The commission. How do they reach out to the commission? Is there a website?
Yes, on the City of Dallas website there is. You find a link for Veterans Affairs Commission. Yeah.
Okay. And if somebody wants to participate in that commission, is that an option as well? If they can pass that background with no tickets?
I think there actually is one vacancy on the commission right now.
Okay.
So, yeah, you can apply. I think that way too.
All
but
right.
you have to have a city council member appoint you.
Ah, okay.
But
right.
I suspect if you look on the commission website and you see which city council members don't have a member, then you could call that member and say, I want to be on the commission.
Oh. Okay.
Dr. Katina Robertson.
Who?
Dr. Katina Robertson.
Oh, there you go.
There you go.
I think she's on a commission, isn't she?
Is she?
Yeah.
Yep.
Hi. Okay.
Well, sir, is there anything else that you'd like to share regarding the City of Dallas's initiatives, kind of future goal? I know you had mentioned centralizing the resources and making it accessible to veterans all over.
The City of Dallas itself does not have a lot of resources, but it knows of a lot of resources. Mm-hmm. And so we want to make sure we get, as part of our city responsibility, having veterans and their spouses and relatives know about it, because sometimes the veteran isn't the one who is trying to seek help. It may be the relative, the spouse, the son or the daughter. And so we need to have a way of getting to those people too.
True. Sometimes they have to do that for them. Whole purpose of a wife most of the time. to go find out that information and bring it home. Wife or husband. Sorry, I am that wife that does that. So, but the husband as well. Where can that veteran file their claim? Where can widows try to get their pension? Where can they get education? Where can they get employment? Can a spouse get employment if they're married to a veteran? It's all of those things, all the things.
So, one thing I wanted to just kind of reminiscing about my experiences as a veteran. As a child, my dad was a veteran. I told you about his being a World War II veteran. He stayed in the military for 7 years and got out. He had 3 kids by the time he got out of the Air Force. went to University of Houston on the GI Bill, 1950. Bought a house on the GI Bill, 1950. It's been said that the GI Bill, the post-World War II GI Bill, was the best thing to happen to America, democracy, and economic development since the Homestead Act, which the Homestead Act was in 1870 or so, where people could go out in the West and seize 40 acres, or not seize it, but farm 40 acres, or more, maybe it's more than 40, but anyway, Homestead Act, you could go out west and set up your homestead. But the GI Bill really was a game changer after World War II. And I still remember my dad, we lived near University of Houston, and he rode a bike to U of H, but he also had a job. He was a bus driver at the time. So he had 3 kids, got to go to college, had a house. It's not quite that easy anymore, and it's sad that we don't have the same ability to lift ourselves up as we did back then.
True. Hopefully this year we'll have, because you mentioned the 40 acres, Veterans Land Board perhaps might be joining us this year to give further information about that. I had no idea about all the opportunities you can do through Veterans Land Board. If you want to buy some land, I'm not sure how many people can afford 40 acres in Texas, but maybe an acre or 2 who could swing that, and all the benefits of buying that. They put a whole website up for that. Before I forget, I wanted to say there's a job fair coming, because I'm employment. I'm always going to plug job fair. That's what I do. February 9th at AT&T Recruit Military is having a job fair. They're going to have 50 employers there. These employers pay to attend that event, which means they have jobs. So it's not just a sign that says we're hiring. Those employers are literally hiring, and they want you to come out, bring a lot of copies of your resumes, dress professional, be prepared for probably an on-the-spot interview. Also on February 13th at Redbird 3560 Camp Wisdom, Amazon is having a on-the-spot hiring event from 1 to 5 o'clock. Bring 2 forms of identification. They will be doing the whole process on that day, from your application to your ID to your drug test to you walking out with a contingent offer. So again, that's February 13th for Amazon hiring event, Recruit Military on February 9th, and in March, I'll see you before then, but in March there will be an essential worker hiring event at AT&T for first responders. So all of those who are looking for a better job, fire and rescue, EMT, all of those things, they're going to have a job fair for you as well. There's something for everything.
There is so much competition for trained people right now.
It is.
It's amazing. I mean, the job market in Dallas is really tight.
It is.
And so, T, what advice would you give employers? I'm always on the employer side. I've always, because I felt when I got into this, I guess about 7 years ago, the gap I felt was on the employer side. I felt there was a lot of resources for veterans, and they would always change their resumes. They'd always do their mock interviews, but the employers weren't ready at that point from a recruiting aspect. What advice would you give to employers attending the recruitment, which is a fantastic event at the AT&T Stadium? I mean, that's awesome. What advice would you give those attending on how to interview or what to expect when veterans come with their resumes?
Well, the first thing is don't go in with perceived understanding. Your understanding, what you think a veteran is might not really be what a veteran is. So you want to have an understanding of veterans. In order to have an understanding of veterans, you need a veteran recruiter, or you need somebody like Chris who can tell you who we are, the talents that we bring, how to talk to us, how to talk to different veterans, to not think that everyone has PTSD. What's the with them? What's in it for me is what we're always looking for when we go to your company. When we go to your company, what do you have for us? Are you veteran friendly? Are you part of the Hire Medallion program? Do you understand by hiring us that you get a tax benefit? So you need to know all of those things in advance hiring veterans. And if you don't know, you don't need to look it up. You need to find somebody with the knowledge.
Do you do employer counseling in your agency?
We do. If you have a veteran employer liaison in your area, and in this particular area, there are, I think, 7 of me from here all the way to Denison to Tyler. There is one of us, and we do what's called employer training. So we do a one-on-one with you about all the different aspects of hiring veterans, the benefits of hiring veterans. So we do employer awards for companies that hire veterans, where the American Legion and the DAV recognize you for your outstanding works in hiring veterans. If you don't work with someone like me or Chris, you'll never know those things.
One of the great things about the TVC is that you actually get tangible materials that you can take with you. So T and the TVC makes me look really good because we can do a training for a company and they don't charge anything. So it's a free training that they don't come on site, they'll do. But they have material for your recruiters. I remember I've done about 2 to 3 different trainings for different companies. And they'll bring the acronyms, what the military experience means, what the acronyms mean, what to expect. They provide these materials to the company. And I think that's a huge benefit for any company that's looking to hire, not just hire, but more retain military.
Yes, recruit and retain. We have a whole employer toolkit about apprenticeships. We have someone that can speak to Skills Bridge program. In our region, we have what's called a regional outreach coordinator. He will come out to your company and he will tell you about the 9 programs in TVC, or 8. That's his job to know how many. But it goes anywhere from mental health. We help, if you want to be an entrepreneur. I've never been an entrepreneur, so don't ask me. Okay, I have no idea. Our video director is an entrepreneur, gifted and talented. I am not, but TVC will help you with your business plan. We have grants. We offer grants, free money. That is not my forte either, but TVC has people in those areas that can give you everything you need to make that happen. You want to know about employment? I'm your person. You want to know about those other programs? I'm going to send you to your person.
That's interesting to find out they have an entrepreneurship program at TVC.
We do.
Because I think of the military, we talked earlier about leadership and overcoming and that kind of thing. It seems to me that military lends itself to entrepreneurship and to the people who were leaders anyway.
Yes.
That they want to go out and keep doing what they were doing. May not want to do it in the military, but they like to rely on themselves.
Yes.
And so that's what entrepreneurs do.
They do. And then they turn around and hire more veterans.
Right.
And the crazy thing is, you don't like the military program for a company is not just recruitment, but it's also procurement, supplier diversity. So there's ways that veteran entrepreneurs that are getting off the ground that can partner with TVC for the grants, for the funding, for the education, but can start finding employers that have this procurement, the supplier diversity portals to be plugged into.
Right.
So there's a lot of opportunities for entrepreneurship for those that want.
Right.
Well, and there are tax benefits for veterans set aside, so to speak, for vendors, that kind of thing. But as you point out, American Legion DAV, they give awards to companies that have good veterans programs.
They do, and I write those awards.
And companies like that. I mean, I've been a corporate lawyer most of my life. And so I know corporations like awards.
They do. They like acknowledgement. Yes, they do. And if they win an award, they get to go to the conference for that particular. If they win for American Legion, the last one I think was in Galveston, so they give them a free room. They bring them up there. They get a nice little plaque. They can put it on their website. Veterans see that on their website. They'll see it and go, "Hey, this company knows about veterans. I want to work there." So that is the benefit of winning those awards. It says you're doing great things. For the American Legion Award, you have to have a 10% veteran employment. So if you're at 6.3, it's motivation to get to 10. If you're not at that 10, you can get Disabled DAV Award, which just says you have put forth effort to hire veterans and all the things you did to put forth. Whether you have a designated veteran recruiter, or you attend a lot of veteran job fairs, you acknowledge Veterans Day. If you ever go to Home Depot, you might notice now that the veterans that work at Home Depot, they give them their own little jacket and lanyard that lets them know. I tend to look for those veterans at Home Depot because I'm very lost, but they understand my problem. So we can relate and they don't judge me because I don't know what I'm talking about in Home Depot.
Well, that's the beauty of the retention programs. When you model military programs off diversity, equity, inclusion, accessibility, the DEI programs, you come up with that. Like Interstate Batters, we gave the military logo their distinction on their plaques for their offices. So all that plays into which I love. I love companies that not only hire but also promote and honor.
Yes. Parking spaces.
And I know we're coming close to time, but can you also really quickly talk about your your Fort Hood. I know you have a presence on military installations, TVC does. I know the mega career fair is coming up probably in April or May, I think. But I know employers are looking to kind of start getting on site. TVC can't help with that, correct?
Getting on Fort Hood?
Or at least accessing the transition service members that are coming out.
Okay, actually they can. Although I'm not on Fort Hood, there is a me. I'm telling you, there's a me everywhere in Texas. There is a me on Fort Hood that an employer can reach out to, who will be their liaison to participate in that job fair on Fort Hood. There's also the Transition Assistance Program officer on Fort Hood. However, on Fort Hood now is Joshua Pinson, JOSHUA.PINSON at tvc.texas.gov. He can be your point of contact if you are an employer that wants to attend the mega job fair on Fort Hood.
Perfect.
What a me everywhere. Some are better me's.
I wouldn't be too sure about that. You're the best.
Oh, thanks.
But Mr. Chase, I know we're wrapping up. Do you have anything else, any advice or any upcoming events that you'd like to share?
Well, I want to take this conversation back to the Veterans Affairs Commission to highlight the fact that we really do need to have the city of Dallas at least know about all the programs and be able to talk about them and send people to contact them to you guys. Because right now I think they do partially that, but it's not an organized system that I know of. So that's going to be my goal, is to make sure it's more organized.
Okay, I just learned something. Armistice Day is Remembrance Day. That's very important. And what were the numbers again? It was 11?
The 11th, I think it was the 11th minute after the 11th hour on the 11th day of November 1918.
I think everyone should look that up, because you need to know your history. If you don't know your history, you don't know how to move forward. So don't forget the history. Look that up. As veterans, it's something we should know. Our history should not just start and end with what happened in Iraq. You need to go further than that, so we can appreciate those that came before us.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I got a yes ma'am for that too.
All right, so with that, appreciate everyone that's attended. I appreciate everyone that came out. Next month, don't forget, we will be sending out more the communication and flyer probably within the next 7 days. We have Nathaniel Prescott, Dak Prescott's father. He's an Army veteran. Looking forward to having him as a guest next month. But I appreciate everybody attending. Please feel free to visit the TVC, visit the City of Dallas website, or the Daniel and Salvador Montoya Heroes Foundation website for more information, or to contact us.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody.